complete nonsense. I mean, there's no time left, is there, to negotiate Boris's deal?
Well, Theresa May has done a very bad job of actually negotiating over the last 2 years. I mean, she should have put something on the table which was far, far better than her Chequers plan a lot earlier. And the Chequers plan is no good for anybody. Nobody wants it. The EU says they won't take it. The Remainers in her own government won't support it. The Brexiteers won't support it. So what UKIP's been saying from the very beginning is we need to offer the EU a mutually beneficial free trade agreement in goods and services. And now Boris Johnson's come up with this idea for Canada Plus Plus, which is very much quite similar to what UKIP has been saying from the beginning. So it's good to see that he's caught up with us. Absolutely. You know, we would support that idea. Canada is a free trade agreement in goods, but we would like to add services to that and freedom of movement of capital as well. But we need to make sure that we don't have freedom of movement of people, of labour, because that's one of the big reasons why people voted for Brexit in the first place. We need to control our borders and stop the huge net immigration into this country, which is completely unsustainable.
Well, let's look then at the nitty-gritty of what Boris has said. I mean, what makes you think that the EU would agree to this trade agreement? It's a wish list, isn't it? The Super Canada. Let's look at it. Zero tariffs, mutually recognised standards. I mean, that's far beyond even what Canada do, isn't it?
It would be mutually beneficial, though. I mean, obviously, it would be good for us. You know, it would have the sort of the deal where we recognise each other's standards and regulations and so on, but we wouldn't have to obey the EU rules. We wouldn't have to obey the directives of the European Court of Justice, their rulings and so on. For the EU, it will be beneficial as well, because even with goods and services, they export more to the UK than we do to them. So they would still have a trade surplus with the UK, so European businesses would benefit. And I think you're seeing at the moment manufacturers, particularly German car manufacturers and so on, are really clamouring for a deal. You know, the EU needs to get beyond its adherence to this idea that it's a political thing. The reason that they haven't agreed anything at the moment is because the EU is a political project. But if they cut off their nose to spite their face, European businesses are going to suffer. European businesses want a deal. It's going to be good for them as well.
But, I mean, the thorny issue is obviously Northern Ireland, isn't it, about the border? I mean, what Boris was saying, it seems quite vague, isn't it? I mean, how do you resolve this issue?
You know, it's something that's been weaponised in order to try to stop Brexit, I think, from Monsieur Barnier and also from Remainers in this country. They're throwing it as an obstacle. It really isn't too much of an obstacle. Look, we were in a common travel area with the Republic of Ireland from the 1920s, before we even joined the EU. We will still be in that common travel area. Ireland is not in the Schengen zone. So there will be no problem there with people crossing the border. The thing is, what happens when goods cross the border? Well, goods cross the border anyway, and goods have to be subjected to paperwork anyway, because there is a border. It's not a hard border, but when you cross that border, there's a difference in VAT rates, there's a difference in excise duty rates, there's a difference in currency. The only thing we might add to that is import or export tariffs. But if we have a free trade agreement, which is zero tariff, there wouldn't be any new import or export tariffs. So really the paperwork isn't going to be much different to what it is at the moment. So it can work with a low friction border.
The problem is, though, it's not just the paperwork, it's the politics, isn't it? The DUP, they hate the deal, but they have to be on side, don't they?
Well, I think they hate the Chequers deal, but the idea of a Canada Plus deal would have low friction trade across the border, and what they really don't want, the DUP, is Barnier's backstop of a customs border in the middle of the Irish Sea. So the Canada Plus deal, where we have the border, the trade border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, keeps the integrity of the United Kingdom. And that is very, very important. We cannot sacrifice that. We need our own backstop where the border is between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, not down the middle of the Irish Sea.
Let's look then at the time, and then finally, I mean, isn't this just Boris's pitch for the top job? And we've got the Tory party conference coming up, haven't we?
Well, you know, I do agree with his sentiments, but, you know, you have to understand Boris is a very ambitious politician. I'm not sure that he's someone who was completely dedicated to Brexit for many, many years and decades, like, perhaps someone like Jacob Rees-Mogg in his party was. You know that at heart Jacob Rees-Mogg is a Brexiteer. Boris reportedly wrote 2 letters on the day, one reasons for staying in the EU, one reasons for leaving, and he decided, well, which one was better. If he was really a Brexiteer at heart, he wouldn't even consider reasons for staying in the EU. So it could well be that this is just a pitch for the leadership and he's trying to position himself.